Hi. So now to follow up on what investing really is, we're going to now talk about the wealth system, how wealth gets created, and how we become wealthy. So I'm going to start with this slide deck here, and how money actually turns into wealth, and on the other side of that, how a lot of times it doesn't turn into wealth, right? So why most people never build wealth? We earn but we don't keep. It's not what you earn, it's what you keep. There's all these, you hear about these things about this guy who was a janitor over, 40 years and no one knew. And when he died, he left, you know, $30 million dollars to some charity or something like that. It was because he was living below his means and investing that money and compounding it and making wealth. Other people, you could be a high powered attorney, a surgeon, all kinds of stuff. You make $2 million a year, but you end up spending $2.5 million a year. You're not going to get wealthy that way. You make a lot of money, but you're not going to, you'll spend everything. And if you never build investable capital by saving, you're in trouble. We're in trouble, right? That's the problem. So wealth is not income. That's the first thing to understand, right? Wealth equals accumulated invested capital. That's really the key. That's what we want to understand. High income with zero savings equals zero wealth. Low income with consistent savings, you're growing your wealth. I mean, that's really that's the bottom line. And so we're going to talk, we're going to beat this into the ground a little bit here because it's really the key. The income you get, you've earned it. The old Benjamin Franklin saying, and he got wealthy. A penny saved is a penny earned. It is earned if you save it. If you capture that, that's, you've earned that. That's your earnings, really, right? So savings is what you keep, right? And then what you keep that way, you save a little emergency fund or whatever. And then you start investing and you invest that excess, that surplus money, that surplus capital. And then that money starts working for you. It's working 24/7 while you sleep, all the time. And then from there, those investments, the compounding, the returns on the returns, that is how we make wealth. This is the formula right here. Every wealthy person follows this sequence, and you have to do it deliberately. um, so let's see. The most common pattern, right, for most people is we live paycheck to paycheck, basically, or something like that, right? We save up a whole bunch of money and then we blow it on a great vacation or a car that's fancy and cool, but beyond our means, so that we're scraping by to pay a car loan or something like that. That's the kind of thing that wealthy people do not do. You know, if your income equals spending, then you're making zero. I mean, that's the bottom line. So the most important lever in all of this is your savings rate. You control it, you know, and it has to be, it's discipline. You control it right now, today. And this is really where we're going to start, and it determines your investable capital. How much are you going to save? And it accelerates every downstream, outcome that we're talking about. Your savings rate is going to be greater than your investment in returns, basically, at first, right? So, as we said before, we are a financial enterprise, just like a business, right? Revenue minus expenses equals net income. And then the net income we have either to invest or to reinvest, like in a company. And where does wealth come from? Well, it comes from savings. It's the same thing we talked about, retained earnings is what a company calls it. And this is what gets reinvested into the market. This is what compounds over time. And this is the only source of future wealth. So really think about that. Let that sink in. And if you have, an IRA, a 401k, that kind of savings is actually coming out of your paycheck each month, each 2 weeks. And so the discipline, you just don't see that money and it goes in, and many companies will match those funds. So whatever comes out of your, paycheck, they will match with additional funds. And that's like getting a raise. Tap that out to, as far as, to the max that they will match those funds. That's really a key thing to do. And so small changes make massive outcomes. It's a saving rate, increasing that, how long you're going to invest for. It's all about time, right? And being consistent, Um, Consistency, long-term consistency beats short-term intensity every time. Bruce Lee said that, and we all know, incredible guy he was, right? So, oh, I'm sorry, I think I was on the wrong slide there, but yeah, let's see. Well, I'm going to go back. Wealth, retained earnings. This is what gets reinvested. Here, the small changes. We just talked about that basically, and these kind of changes are what do it, right? So the real strategy, right? This is the strategy we're going to try to follow. Invest regularly, stay consistent, ignore the noise, stick to the system. I have to tell you, everybody says this, and I've learned it, and we all learn it. It takes time, right? Y- at some point, you're going to have your investments and you're going to watch them. And like they say, a watched pot never boils, and it's not going to go up that much and it's going to go down. You'll be worried. And then after time, you'll start, maybe you'll take like a year or 2 years and you won't even pay attention to it. And all of a sudden you'll go back and, oh my gosh, it's grown so much. And that's, we got to think in decades, basically, not in months and years. We're not trying to, day trade. We're trying to find good companies and let them do their thing. Let the time do the work. You stay consistent, compounding, and it rewards patience. So again, the common pattern. Wait to start. I'll do it later and stuff, and that is the compound killer. I mean, try to time markets. You're always, should I get in the market now? Should I not? What's going on? All these things in the news. I don't know if this is a good time. Um, or investing inconsistently. You want to set up just a consistent schedule and just keep up consistency. That's really the key. That's the professional pattern, right? Systematic, a lot of automated investing. People do it automated, but I like to do it myself. Automated is, it takes the discipline out of it. You just, like, it comes out, like with your 401k or something, your retirement plan. It comes out of your paycheck. You don't see it. It's automated, basically. And think in long-term horizons, years, and focus on these capital allocation decisions. One nice way to have it is, you have your retirement fund maybe invested in the stock market, right? And it's gone, and they invested, in mutual funds and things, because they don't, it's too risky, they think, to invest in just single stocks, and they don't want people to ruin their, investments that way. So, and then have a small fund of your own, or as much as you can fund, that you control through a brokerage account, and then you invest whenever you want, right? And how much you want. So why this matters, eh, no savings, no investing, right? Obviously, no investing, no compounding, no compounding, no wealth. This chain is unbreakable, and it starts with what you think. So let's think about this. Take time and really think about this. What your income is, how much comes in each month, what your expenses are, how much goes out, and then what is your savings rate? What are you keeping? What's your profit, basically? What do you have left over? And then where is it going to work? Where are you investing that money? These are key. And think about things that you're spending on that are just, maybe not that worth it. Think about how much you're probably spending on cable TV or all kinds of different things that cost you, subscriptions that you don't even use anymore. If you can start to manage that and reduce your expenses, there's two ways to increase your profit or your savings rate, right? One is to get more income, and the other is to reduce expenses. That's how companies do it. So think about that. And an easy way to do it quick is to reduce your expenses and then route that money that you save into your investment program, into the plan that you're going to use. That's really, something you can do right now. So you can increase that savings rate in that way, and then just automate or just be very consistent in your investing, and think in decades, not months. We tend to uh, overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, and really underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. So think about that for other things we do too. Really, really key. So wealth is not built in the market; it's built in your behavior. That's basically the takeaway from this lecture. So, hope that was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one. We'll keep on doing these.